New York City, one of the most expensive places on Earth. And right now, a really radical idea is getting a lot of attention. So, could socialist policies actually fix the city's insane housing crisis? Or would they just break it even more? That's what we're going to unpack today, the huge debate over socialism and the skyscraper.
Okay, so to really get what's at stake here, you just need to think about one number, $1 million. That's not the price of a mansion, that's the median price to buy a home in NYC. $1 million. You can see why the dream of owning a home is just completely out of reach for so many people. And that number, that's the core of this whole crisis.
Right, so before we jump into the proposed fixes, we've got to really dig into the problem itself. And believe me, when we talk about New York City, we're talking about a city that is under an incredible amount of pressure.
And listen, this isn't just a problem for people trying to buy a place. Oh no, the rental market is, well, it's at its breaking point. I mean, the vacancy rate is less than 4%. That means finding any apartment is a nightmare. And when things are that scarce, prices go through the roof. We're talking double-digit rent hikes, year after year, in some spots. It's wild.
So what's causing all this pressure? It really boils down to one thing: a massive, massive housing shortage. Some experts estimate the city needs more than 200,000 new homes. Not in the future, but like right now, just to keep up with demand. That's a huge number. It's almost hard to wrap your head around a deficit that big.
Okay, so the obvious question is, why not just build more houses? Well, if only it were that simple. You've got this whole tangle of restrictive zoning laws, super long environmental reviews, and then you've got the fierce local opposition, what they call NIMBYism, not in my backyard. All of that stuff can slow new construction down to a complete crawl.
What's really interesting is that this whole conversation, it's not new for New York at all. The city actually has these deep roots in socialist movements, which were a big deal back in the early 1900s. And now, here we are, a century later, and those same ideas, things like government intervention, social housing, they're coming back into the spotlight as a possible fix for today's crisis.
And that brings us right to the heart of what we're talking about today: the proposed solution, a whole toolkit of policies inspired by socialist ideas. And let me tell you, calling it controversial is probably the understatement of the year.
Now, the main tool in this toolkit is something you've probably heard of: rent control. So, what is it? Put simply, it's when the government steps in and puts a limit, a ceiling, on how much a landlord can charge you for rent and how much they can raise it each year.
But look, rent control is just one piece of the puzzle here. The full proposal is much bigger. It's a whole collection of policies designed to completely reshape the market. We're talking about everything from building massive new public housing projects to stabilizing rents in buildings we already have, and even using subsidies to help people afford a place to live.
So, that's the million-dollar question, right? Could these policies actually work? Let's start by looking at the argument for doing all this.
Well, the people who support these ideas, they argue that, yeah, they could tackle the affordability crisis head-on. They think rent control could slow down that rapid gentrification that forces people from their own neighborhoods. It could protect low-income tenants from being pushed out. And public housing, that could be a crucial safety net for families who need it most.
And they'll tell you this isn't just some abstract theory. They point to real-world examples, like Vienna. Over there, they have this city-run housing program that's been so successful, it provides affordable homes for more than 60% of the people who live there. Think about that. It basically takes housing out of the crazy speculative market for most of the city.
And it's not just Vienna. You can look at Stockholm, too. Their rent control policies get a lot of credit for keeping the rental market both stable and affordable. So the point is, these aren't just ideas on paper. They've been tried in other big cities around the world.
Okay, but for every argument for these policies, there's an equally loud warning about the potential downsides. So to be fair, we have to look at the argument against them now. What are the risks?
Critics, well, they paint a totally different picture. They say, look, if you cap rent, you take away the financial reason for anyone to build new housing. And if you do that, you're just going to make the shortage even worse. And what about the buildings that are already there? If landlords can't make a profit, they have less incentive to keep their properties up, so the quality could go way down. Plus, there's the huge question of whether the city could even handle managing a giant public housing system.
And this, right here, is the central conflict in this whole debate. It's like a balancing act. On one side, you have the goal of affordability and protecting tenants. But on the other side, you have the very real risk of scaring away investment and watching the quality of housing just plummet. Every single policy choice means weighing these massive trade-offs.
So, where does all this leave New York City? Well, as you can probably guess by now, this whole thing is incredibly messy. And there are definitely no easy answers here.
One thing is for sure, though. There's no magic wand, no single silver bullet to fix this. Just controlling rent isn't going to solve a supply shortage, and just building more stuff doesn't guarantee it'll be affordable. The only real path forward is probably going to need a whole mix of different strategies.
And finding that solution, it means getting everyone in the same room. We're talking developers, the people who actually build, tenants who desperately need affordable places to live, the policymakers who set all the rules, and the community groups who are on the ground representing local neighborhoods. The real challenge, of course, is getting all these groups who usually want very different things to actually agree on something.
At the end of the day, what everyone is aiming for is a balanced market. You can think of it like a three-legged stool. One leg is affordability for the people who live here. The second leg is sustainability, making sure the buildings are maintained for the long haul. And the third is economic growth for the entire city. If you kick out any one of those legs, the whole thing just falls apart.
And all of this leaves us with one final, really big question. It's at the core of this whole debate, and it's not just a question for New York, but for cities all over the world. What does a fair and equitable housing market truly look like?